Hey there, welcome to DIY Projects with Pete. Today we're going to build some nightstands with a concrete top. This is a fun and simple project that you can create, so let's look at some of the tools and supplies you'll need for today's project.
For the main tools, you'll need a miter saw, circular saw, Kreg jig, and drills. And for the supplies, you'll need lumber and concrete. The complete list can be found in the plans. The first step is to start making your cuts for the wood base according to the cut list on the plans at DIYpete.com/nightstand. Use a table saw to rip the legs and some of the other pieces down to size. Then use a miter saw to get the boards down to the correct length. Next, we'll assemble each of the legs. We'll use a pocket hole jig for this process, and we'll start by adjusting it to the settings noted in the plans. The main adjustments are to the stop collar on the bit and to the adjustable blue block. The last adjustment is to set the clamp for the stock of the wood. The legs are each constructed of 2 pieces of wood and then attached with pocket holes to form an L. Measure and mark the 1 3/4 inch wide parts of each leg and evenly space the pocket holes. I'd recommend using about 4 pocket holes on each leg. The Kreg jig makes it fun and super easy to attach the boards to each other. After doing the pocket holes on the legs, create pocket holes on the underside of the shelf boards as well. Do pocket holes around the perimeter and then along the lengths to attach each of them together. Do a quick sanding of all the boards, and then we'll move on to the assembly process. Use a combination of wood glue and pocket hole screws to attach the leg boards together. Wipe away any excess glue with a damp rag, and after assembling the legs, we'll connect them together with the side boards that are 3/4 inches thick by 7 1/4 inches in width. Use a speed square to ensure the boards are all squared up. Always pre-drill before using screws to prevent the wood from splitting, and then clamp the boards and attach them in place using glue and 1 1/4 inch screws. Repeat the process for the side and the back boards. It is very important to pre-drill, and a countersinking bit is going to come in helpful. You'll need to drill the pilot holes on the back side at a slight angle, followed by 1 1/4 inch wood screws. Lay out the boards for the lower shelf, then apply a little glue to the ends and attach to each other with 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws. Take your time with this process, and you can use clamps to help keep them together while putting in the screws. Then attach trim pieces around the outside of the shelf boards. Measure up 6 inches from the bottom of each leg and put a mark. Then line the shelf up with the marks. Check to make sure the shelf is level and attach it in place. Use glue and 1 1/4 inch wood screws. Make sure to pre-drill and to use a countersink bit to prevent the wood from splitting. Next, cut the strips for the front frame of the drawer. Glue and then attach them from the back side by pre-drilling and then using 1 1/4 inch wood screws. Fire up the table saw to cut the 1/2 inch plywood to size for the sides and for the base of the drawer. Use a miter saw to cut down the lengths and then remove any rough edges with an orbital sander. Set the jig to 1/2 inch stock settings and drill pocket holes on the underside of the drawer base and attach the base to the sides using 1 inch Kreg screws. This can be a bit tricky since the material is so thin, so just take your time and you'll be just fine. Continue attaching all 4 sides of the drawer, making sure to use wood glue in combination with the Kreg screws. Then we'll move on to the drawer hardware.
Here's a look at the ball bearing drawer slides. This is going to attach to the inside of the base. This will attach to the drawer. To release this, you're going to slide it all the way out, hit this little switch, pull it out, and then we'll attach that to the side of the drawer. To put it back in, simply put it back along this slide, continue pushing it in, and it will lock.
Next, glue and use wood screws to attach the drawer mounting strips. Once these are in place, line up and attach the 14-inch ball-bearing drawer slides using the screws provided with the slides. The end of the slide will sit about 1/8 of an inch in from the inside of the front frame, and the bottom of the slide will sit about flush with the drawer slide strips. The plans explain this process in more detail if you have some questions. Then attach the mounting hardware to the drawer This will sit about a 1/2 inch up from the bottom and then about 1/8 of an inch in from the front. You may need to make slight adjustments to make yours fit just right. Next, put the drawer in place and make sure it slides in and out without any problems. You can make any adjustments as needed. Attach the front face for the drawer from the back side with 1-inch wood screws. It should have about 1/8 of an inch of wiggle room around each side. Then measure and mark for the drawer pull. Attach it in place using the hardware provided. Then add a couple support boards near the top of the base to help evenly distribute the weight of the concrete top. You can attach them using pocket holes. Give the boards a quick sanding to prepare for the finishing process. When using softer woods like pine, you can use a wood conditioner prior to staining to help the finish go on a little more evenly. If you are going for a real rustic look, you can bypass this step. Apply the stain with a rag and use a brush to get the hard-to-reach places, and make sure to wear gloves and to apply the stain in a well-ventilated area.
All right, now on to the concrete. The first step is to make your mold. We're going to use melamine to construct this. You'll want to measure for the base of your mold pieces, and then we'll do the strips as well. So let's go ahead and start cutting and creating the mold.
The concrete top for this project is going to be a 20 by 20 inch square that is 1 inch thick. We'll use the reverse cast technique, which will make it easy to get a smooth and level surface. Use a table saw to cut the side strips and base of the mold. The strip width will determine the thickness of the concrete. Since we want an inch thick concrete slab, we'll cut the strips to 1 3/4 inches wide. The extra 3/4 of an inch will compensate for the 3/4 inch base of the mold the strips are attached to. Attach the strips to the base of the mold using 1.5 inch wood screws. Make sure to pre-drill and that the screws go in level. You do not want it at an angle because it can bulge the melamine, which would affect the surface of the mold and ultimately the surface of the concrete that forms around it. Continue around all 4 sides, making sure the strips line up level with the bottom of the mold. 2 of the strips are going to be 20 inches, and the other 2 sides will have strips cut to 21.5 inches. Make sure the mold is square, then clean it with rubbing alcohol prior to sealing the edges with 100% silicone. Run a bead of caulk around the perimeter of the mold. This is going to help seal the mold, and then it's also going to give the top side a bit of a beveled edge. Use a caulk rounding tool to even out the bead and have plenty of paper towels to remove excess. Measure and cut the reinforcement for the concrete slab. Now, I'd normally use a square mesh or rebar, but since this is such a thin slab, we'll use a diamond lathe. Wear gloves when cutting it and use aviation snips to cut through it. The dimensions of the reinforcement will be 18 inches by 18 inches, so there will be an inch gap between the perimeter of the mesh and the side walls of the mold. Now it's time to mix the concrete. Wear gloves and a dust mask for this process and add the amount of water recommended by the manufacturer. I like to add a bit of water first to keep the dust down. Add the concrete and mix until it's about a peanut butter consistency. You don't want it too wet or too dry. Simply add more of the mix or more water until you get just the right consistency. I like the Quikrete countertop mix because it has plasticizer additives that allow you to use less water and yet to have a more flowable mixture. I also like the countertop mix because it is a bit easier to get a professional looking finish with fewer bug holes. It also has the smaller aggregate, which helps you when you're pouring thinner slabs. After transferring the concrete from the bucket to the mold, move it around and spread it evenly. Make sure to push it into the corners and edges. Vibrate the concrete to help remove some of the air pockets and fill it a little more than half full before adding the reinforcement. Make sure the reinforcement is as flat as possible and center it in place. Then add concrete to the mold until it's full. Once full, use a flat board to screed away excess concrete and to level the surface. This side is actually going to be the bottom of the slab since we are using the reverse cast technique. Fill any low spots with concrete and screed back and forth a few more times. Vibrate the concrete by tapping the sides with a rubber mallet or by lifting the work surface up and down to shake the table. Once vibrated, you can use a trowel to continue to smooth out the bottom surface. Now, the bottom surface doesn't have to look perfect, but it does need to sit level on the base. so do make sure the mold is curing on a level surface and shim underneath it if needed to ensure your concrete table cures properly. I like to wait for the concrete to set up a bit, and then I'll give it a quick troweling to give the bottom side a smooth finish. To help the concrete cure evenly, you can give it a slight mist every once in a while with some water, or simply cover it with plastic and let it cure for about 24 to 48 hours. Then clean the concrete off your tools and relax while the concrete cures. Once the concrete has cured, we can remove the mold, remove the screws, and then slowly pull the sidewalls away from the concrete. Don't put any pressure on the concrete since it is still green and can chip easily. I like to soften the edges with a sander right away to prevent chipping from happening. Always sand away from the corners and never into them so you don't blow out a corner. Next, place some old rags on a work surface and slowly flip the mold. The concrete should pull away from the base of the mold, and it's always a lot of fun to see how the top surface comes out. It's actually probably my favorite part. And these came out great. Very few pinholes and a nice, organic, smooth finish. Wait a few hours for the concrete to continue to cure out of the mold, and then go outside and use an orbital sander with a 220 grit sandpaper to sand the concrete.
One other option is to use a wet polisher. You can either use a powered wet polisher or hand polishing pads.
Next, mix a little Portland cement with some water to create a slurry paste. Wear gloves and then fill the voids with this mixture. Simply push the slurry into the voids with your hands, and you can always use it to fill any rough spots or chips in the slab as well. Remove excess with a putty knife prior to it drying completely. This is going to help save on some sanding time. Then allow the paste to dry and do a light sanding to remove any excess. Use an orbital sander or even a Scotch pad can sometimes do the job. Lastly, seal the concrete using a natural stone or a concrete sealer. I like to dilute it about 50-50 with water and to do about 5 or 6 thin coats. It dries quickly, so you don't need to wait long between coats. Once dry, it's time to install the new top on the base. Use 100% silicone to attach the concrete to the base. And that's all there is to it. A brand new set of nightstands you can build in just a few days. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. I hope it inspires you to make your own nightstands or to get out in the garage and create. For detailed photos and downloadable plans, go to DIYpete.com/nightstand, and please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Best of luck with all your upcoming DIY projects, and cheers from Montana. I invite you to check out some of the other concrete DIY projects on this channel. Click on the left thumbnail to learn how to build an acid-stained concrete coffee table, and on the right thumbnail to learn how to make a concrete top for an accent table. Cheers and have a good one.